With me now is Scott Reid. He is our CTV News political commentator. Scott, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Marcia.
What are you expecting to hear from Katie Telford today?
Well, plenty of political drama and dance, I think, because this is going to be a unique circumstance. First, we got the chief of staff appearing before a parliamentary committee. That's unusual. As a general rule, staffers don't appear before committees. Ministers do. Katie Telford, as the chief of staff to the prime minister, has appeared on a couple of other occasions. But I think this is going to be unique because given the subject matter, national security, foreign intelligence, there are going to be legitimate constraints on what she can and what she cannot share. There are going to be moments where she will have to look an opposition member of parliament in the eye and say, I'm sorry, I'm simply not able to answer that. I cannot divulge that information without sharing intelligence or adopted intelligence from an ally, and I simply can't get into it. And that's going to make for some fireworks, I suspect.
Well, remind our viewers again how we got to this point. How is it that Katie Telford is the one that is going to be on the hot seat on election interference?
Well, I'll get real boring for you. It started with the last election, and we ended up with a minority parliament, which means that the Liberals do not control the majority votes on committees, which means those committees can call all sorts of witnesses. So what's happened, of course, is that we had this controversy over whether or not there's been interference in our elections and our democratic processes by Chinese officials. There have been many reports in the Globe and Mail, other news organizations. Many of them have been contested. Sole source, leaked documents, that sort of thing, uncorroborated evidence. And so it's gotten very hot. I would argue that the prime minister and the prime minister's office handled it with oven gloves at the beginning, very fumbly. And so it escalated and escalated. She was asked to appear before this committee. She declined because staffers generally don't. It got us into a filibuster at committee, a full-on political confrontation. And finally, the Liberals backed down and said, all right, hell, we're not going to keep this thing going forever. She will appear. But I suspect that today will be unsatisfying because she is legitimately constrained in what she can and cannot share.
And so another wrinkle, another development from this week, the news from the Trudeau Foundation. Everybody from the foundation has resigned, of course, following the news, what they call the politicization of that donation from China. How will that factor, Scott, into today's testimony?
Well, because so much of today is going to be pure political theater. I mean, if you're an opposition MP, it is a partisan exercise. You're going to try to attempt to embarrass the prime minister's chief of staff. There's going to be a game. Does she look like she's being reticent, or do they look like they're being unreasonable? So things like the Trudeau Foundation and that controversy, having to give back the donation, chaos around the organization itself, resignation of board members. You know, the prime minister doesn't have, and in fact cannot have anything to do with that foundation. It bears his father's name, but that's it. But it'll get brought up. Why? It makes for a good TV clip, makes for good confrontation, makes for good contest, makes for good politics. So we're going to see that come up for sure, just as a way of trying to, kind of yank on the bridle a little bit, see if you can get the horse to buck.
All right, you've explained why Katie Telford. Who else do you anticipate will be called on to testify?
Well, that's a super interesting question. I mean, obviously, the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor is a senior bureaucrat. Senior bureaucrats are frequently called to testify. You're going to see others, possibly ministers. But, I think one of the tests of this, and one of the reasons that, frankly, I don't believe it's a tremendously serious exercise. Sadly, I think we're at a place where parliamentary committees can hardly even be counted upon to carry out serious duties, is that, really, they just want this. They want the political show of this. They'll try to create some kind of kerfuffle, and then they'll, say, well, look at what she said or what she didn't say. So I think for them, frankly, I think for the committee, today's the big day.